The overhead fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting irregular shadows along the endlessly stretching corridor of Station S-14. A faint metallic scent permeated the recycled air, mixed with the unmistakable aroma of military-grade protein paste that had been reheated one too many times. Tonight, like every other night on this remote outpost at the edge of the Star Belt, the station continued its slow rotation through the void, its crew marking time between shifts with the mechanical precision of clockwork. Sergeant Ryan Sato trudged through the dimly lit hallway, his boots creating a hollow echo against the metal grating. 12 hours into his patrol shift, his muscles ached and his mind wandered to the lonely comfort of his bunk. The monotony of life on S-14 had worn thin months ago. Another patrol completed, another day crossed off his mandatory service term. He pressed his palm against the biometric scanner outside his quarters, waiting for the familiar chirp of recognition. As the door hissed open, Ryan froze in the threshold. His private sanctuary, normally a Spartan cell containing little more than a bed, a desk, and carefully organized military gear, now hosted an unexpected guest. There, sitting cross-legged on his bunk with the casual air of someone who belonged there, was the most peculiar woman he had ever seen. Her hair shimmered like starlight against the backdrop of his gray military sheets, a cascade of silver that seemed to shift colors when she moved. Two delicate antennae extended from her temples, twitching slightly as she turned to face him with eyes that sparkled with impossible depths. In her hands, she held the emergency ration bar he had been saving, the special high-protein dark chocolate flavor that was practically worth its weight in gold on this forsaken outpost. "Oh, hello," she chirped, taking another bite of his precious ration bar. "This isn't the waste processing center, is it? I was looking for a quiet place to rest, and this seemed perfect. These snacks are delightful, by the way. Much better than the nutrition cubes we have back home." Ryan blinked rapidly, his exhausted brain struggling to process the scene before him. He must be hallucinating from lack of sleep. That was the only logical explanation for why an alien woman was sitting on his bed, eating his carefully hoarded food, and smiling at him as if this were the most natural thing in the universe. "Who? What? How did you get in here?" Ryan managed to stammer, his hand instinctively reaching for the communication device on his belt. The alien woman uncrossed her legs gracefully and stood, her movements fluid in a way that suggested she wasn't quite bound by the same gravitational rules as humans. "I'm Taya," she announced proudly, "and I got in through the ventilation system. Your station's ducts are surprisingly spacious. Though I have to say, your directional signs are terribly confusing. Deck 4, Section B could mean anything." Ryan glanced at his security panel, noting with disbelief that it showed no breach, no unauthorized entry. His gaze returned to Taya, who was now examining the contents of his desk drawer with keen interest. "You need to leave," he said firmly, though his voice lacked the authoritative edge he intended. "This is a restricted military facility. Civilians, especially aliens, aren't allowed in private quarters." Taya turned to face him, holding up a pair of his socks with genuine fascination. "These are extraordinary, such simple construction, yet they perfectly conform to the foot's shape. The textiles on my planet are all self-molding. This is so primitive, it's actually clever." Despite his exhaustion and the surreal nature of the situation, Ryan found himself fighting back a smile. There was something disarmingly innocent about her enthusiasm for his mundane belongings. But reality quickly reasserted itself. Protocol dictated that he should report this immediately. An unauthorized alien presence on a military station was a serious security breach. "Listen, Taya," he began, choosing his words carefully. "I don't know how you got here or what you're doing, but if security finds you, there will be serious consequences. For both of us." She tilted her head, her antennae twitching thoughtfully. "Security? Oh, you mean those nice people with the stern faces and fancy uniforms? They seem very focused on their card game in the monitoring room. I doubt they'll notice anything tonight." Ryan's eyes widened. She had somehow made it past the guards undetected. Either she was telling the truth about their slack attention, or she possessed abilities beyond his understanding. Neither option was particularly comforting. Even so, he pressed on, I need you to leave. Now, Taya's face fell slightly, her silver eyes dimming. But it's so interesting here. Your room has such character, and these ration bars are truly exceptional. Can't I stay just for tonight? I promise I'll be quiet. You won't even know I'm here. You're literally eating my food and going through my things, Ryan pointed out, though his resolve was weakening. I'll replace everything, she assured him quickly. I have a matter replicator in my ship. I can make you 10 of these bars if you'd like. Or 100. The mention of her ship caught his attention. You have a ship? Then why are you here? Oh, it's in stealth mode in your cargo bay. Don't worry, it's very small and energy efficient. No one will detect it. I'm just exploring, learning about human culture. Your species is fascinating, you know, so serious all the time, yet capable of creating something as wonderful as this chocolate-flavored nutrition bar. Ryan ran a hand through his short black hair, feeling a headache building behind his eyes. Every fiber of his military training screamed at him to report this immediately. But something about Taya's earnest curiosity and the way she seemed to find joy in the most mundane aspects of human life made him hesitate. One night, he finally conceded, surprising himself. You can stay one night, but you have to promise to be gone by morning, and you can't leave this room. Taya's face lit up with a smile that seemed to brighten the entire room. Thank you. You won't regret this. I'm an excellent house guest. In fact, I've already made some improvements to your environmental controls. The humidity level was all wrong for optimal human comfort. Ryan noticed for the first time that the air did feel fresher, less stale than usual. He sank into his desk chair, watching as Taya returned to his bed, settling in as if she'd always belonged there. What have I gotten myself into? He muttered, though a small part of him was already curious about what other improvements this strange visitor might bring to his mundane military existence. The morning arrived with a series of complications that Ryan should have anticipated but hadn't in his exhausted state. He awoke to find Taya had not only stayed the night, but had apparently spent the pre-dawn hours reorganizing his entire living space. His military-issue boots were now arranged by frequency of use rather than regulation order, and his protein bars had been sorted by flavor and nutritional content. Good morning, Taya chirped brightly, somehow looking even more radiant than she had the night before. I made breakfast. Well, I improved your protein paste dispenser. It now creates 17 different flavor combinations. Ryan stared at the previously basic dispensing unit, which now sported several new buttons and what appeared to be a holographic display. A part of him wanted to be angry about the unauthorized modifications, but the aroma wafting from the freshly dispensed breakfast bowl was undeniably appealing. Before he could respond, a sharp knock at the door made them both freeze. Sato? You in there? Came the familiar voice of Private Jensen, his patrol partner. Taya's eyes widened, and she looked around for a place to hide. Ryan gestured frantically toward the small storage closet, then remembered it was already packed full of his gear. Instead, he pushed her toward the bathroom, mouthing "Stay quiet," as she disappeared behind the sliding door. Coming, Ryan called out, trying to sound normal as he opened the door just enough to block any view of the interior. Jensen peered at him suspiciously. Heard some weird noises from your room last night. Everything okay? Just, watching some old Earth vids, Ryan lied poorly. Couldn't sleep after patrol. His partner raised an eyebrow. Since when do you watch vids? And what's that smell? It doesn't smell like standard protein paste. From behind a bathroom door came a muffled sound, like someone trying to stifle a sneeze. Ryan coughed loudly to cover it. I think I'm coming down with something, he said quickly. Probably caught it from the recycled air. Better keep your distance. Jensen took a step back automatically. Right. Well, briefing's in 30. Don't be late. He paused, sniffing the air again. Seriously, though, what did you do to your food processor? Special dietary requirements, Ryan mumbled. Medical orders. After Jensen finally left, Taya emerged from the bathroom, her antennae twitching with suppressed laughter. That was exciting. Are all your mornings this dramatic? No, Ryan groaned, slumping against the wall. This is definitely not normal. And you, he pointed at her accusingly, we're supposed to leave at morning. But I haven't finished my improvements yet, she protested, gesturing to a half-disassembled device on his desk that he didn't remember owning. Besides, I've discovered your coffee maker is tragically outdated. I can fix that. Please don't fix anything else, Ryan begged, but it was too late. Taya had already turned her attention to the ancient coffee maker that had been standard issue since the station's construction. While Ryan rushed through his morning routine and headed to the briefing, Taya remained behind, promising to stay out of trouble. He should have known better. The first sign of trouble came during the mid-morning coffee break. The entire common room erupted in confusion when the newly improved coffee maker not only produced the best coffee anyone had ever tasted, but also began playing what could only be described as alien jazz music. When the stars, Lieutenant Marianne demanded, staring at the machine as it crooned a surprisingly melodic tune about the virtues of proper caffeine extraction. Ryan felt his stomach drop. He recognized Taya's handiwork immediately. The coffee maker's display now showed a cheerful animated face that winked at each person as it dispensed their beverage. Probably just a glitch, he offered weakly, but his fellow soldiers were already gathering around, marveling at the transformation. This is the best coffee I've had since leaving Earth, Corporal Davies declared, taking another sip. Whatever glitch did this, I hope it never gets fixed. By the time Ryan managed to slip away and return to his quarters, he found Taya had been busy, very busy. His room now featured what appeared to be a miniature weather system providing optimal air circulation, and his desk lamp had been modified to emit a full spectrum of light that supposedly promoted better mental health. You promised to stay out of trouble, he said, torn between exasperation and amazement. Taya looked up from her latest project, her silver eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. But I did. I've been improving things. Don't you like the coffee maker's new personality? I programmed it with 17 different languages and a basic understanding of human humor. It's singing jazz in the common room. Oh, that's just its morning routine. Wait until you hear the evening ballads. Ryan sank onto his newly modified bed, which now adjusted its firmness automatically. Taya, you can't keep doing this. People will notice. They'll start asking questions. She sat beside him, her expression turning serious for the first time. I'm sorry. I see so many ways things could be better. Your species has such potential, but you limit yourselves with regulations and fear of change. There was something in her voice, a hint of loneliness perhaps, that made Ryan pause. Why are you really here? He asked softly. Taya was quiet for a moment, her antennae drooping slightly. My world is beautiful but rigid. Everything is perfect, optimized, efficient. There's no room for mistakes, for happy accidents, for jazz-singing coffee makers. She smiled wistfully. I wanted to find a place where imperfection was allowed, where things could be messy and wonderful at the same time. Ryan found himself understanding more than he expected. His own life had been a series of regulations and protocols, each day identical to the last. Until yesterday, when an alien woman had literally dropped into his world and turned everything upside down. One more night, he heard himself saying, but we need to be more careful. And please, no more modifications to public equipment. Taya's smile returned, brighter than ever. I promise. Though I should mention I already started working on a shower system. The water pressure was abysmal. As if on cue, they heard a distant cheer from down the hall, followed by someone exclaiming about the miraculous improvement to the communal showers. Ryan buried his face in his hands. We're going to get caught. Not if we're clever, Taya assured him, patting his shoulder. Besides, everyone seems much happier already. Haven't you noticed? He had noticed. The normally dour atmosphere of Station S-14 had shifted subtly. People were smiling more, lingering over their improved coffee, enjoying the inexplicably better showers. Maybe a little chaos wasn't such a bad thing after all. That evening, as they shared a meal of remarkably improved protein paste, Ryan found himself opening up about his own dreams and frustrations. He told Taya about his childhood fascination with space exploration, how he'd wanted to be a pilot, but had enlisted in the military to support his family instead. The stars called to you, Taya observed, her antennae swaying gently. But duty anchored you to the ground. Something like that, Ryan admitted. What about you? What made you leave your perfect world? Perfection is overrated, she said simply. My people have achieved technological mastery, but we've forgotten how to be surprised, how to laugh at unexpected things. Like your friend Jensen's face when he smelled the coffee this morning. They both chuckled at the memory, and Ryan realized he hadn't laughed this much in months. There was something refreshing about Taya's perspective, her ability to find wonder in the mundane aspects of human life that he'd long since taken for granted. But their moment of connection was interrupted by an urgent announcement over the station's communication system. All personnel, report to stations. Anomalous energy signatures detected in residential sector. Ryan's blood ran cold. They were scanning for Taya. The crisis began with a station-wide alert that sent personnel scrambling to their posts. Ryan's heart pounded as he realized the inevitable had happened. Someone had noticed the unusual energy patterns emanating from Taya's various improvements throughout the station. We need a plan, he said urgently, pacing the small confines of his quarters while Taya calmly continued tinkering with what appeared to be his alarm clock. I could disguise myself, she offered, not looking particularly concerned. My species has limited shape-shifting abilities. Nothing dramatic, but enough to pass as human from a distance. That won't fool a bioskin, Ryan pointed out. They're going to do a full genetic sweep of the station. They'll find you. Taya finally looked up, her silver eyes gleaming with mischief. Not if I give them something else to find first. Before Ryan could ask what she meant, she produced a small device from seemingly nowhere and began adjusting its controls. This will create multiple false readings throughout the station. They'll be chasing shadows for hours. That's just delaying the inevitable, Ryan argued. But he had to admit it bought them time to think. Time is all we need, Taya assured him. Now, about that disguise. I'll need a uniform. 20 minutes later, they had transformed Taya into a passable maintenance worker. Her silver hair was hidden beneath a regulation cap. Her antennae somehow retracted or concealed, and she wore one of Ryan's spare uniforms that she had quickly altered to fit. A holographic ID badge completed the illusion. Remember, Ryan coached her as they prepared to venture out. Maintenance workers are supposed to look busy and annoyed. Don't smile too much, don't make eye contact, and always carry a tool. Like this. Taya adopted a perfect scowl and hefted a plasma wrench with practiced indifference. That's actually perfect, Ryan admitted, surprised by her acting skills. Their plan was simple. Blend in with the chaos of the security sweep, while Taya used her device to misdirect the scanners. Everything went smoothly for the first hour. Taya played her role flawlessly, even managing to grumble authentically about overtime pay when questioned by a passing officer. But their luck ran out when Lieutenant Marianne herself appeared in the corridor, her sharp eyes scanning every face. Sergeant Sato, she called out, causing both Ryan and Taya to freeze. A word. Ryan stepped forward, trying to position himself between Marianne and Taya. Yes, Lieutenant. These energy anomalies started in your sector, Marianne said, her gaze flickering to Taya. And who's this? I don't recognize her from the maintenance roster. New transfer, Ryan lied quickly. Just arrived yesterday. Still getting oriented. Marianne's eyes narrowed. Funny, I approve all transfers, and I don't recall any maintenance personnel additions. Taya, to her credit, maintained her disguise perfectly. Must be a paperwork error, ma'am, she grumbled in a surprisingly accurate imitation of a board technician. Been happening a lot lately with the system upgrades. For a moment, it seemed like Marianne might accept this explanation. Then her communicator chirped with an urgent message. Her expression hardened as she read it. Interesting, she said slowly. The bioscanners just detected non-human DNA in this exact location. Care to explain that, Sergeant? Ryan's mind raced, but before he could formulate a response, the station's alarm system suddenly blared to life. Emergency lights flashed, and a computerized voice announced, "Warning, cascade failure in environmental systems. All personnel to emergency stations. In the confusion that followed, Ryan lost sight of Taya. Personnel rushed past, heading to their assigned emergency positions. The environmental system failure was serious. Without proper life support, the station had maybe hours before becoming uninhabitable. Ryan found himself swept along to the command center, where chaos reigned. Multiple systems were failing simultaneously, and no one could determine the cause. As he watched the technical team struggle with the cascading failures, a horrible thought occurred to him. Had Taya's modifications somehow triggered this disaster? Then, through the crowd, he spotted her. She had shed her disguise and was standing openly near the main control panel, her silver hair and antennae fully visible. Several security officers had their weapons trained on her, but she seemed unconcerned, her fingers dancing over the controls with impossible speed. "Stand down," Marion shouted at her security team. "She's stabilizing the systems." Indeed, as Taya worked, the warning lights began switching from red to green. The cascade failure reversed itself, and within minutes, the station's systems were not only stable, but functioning better than they had in years. "There," Taya announced, stepping back from the console. "Your primary regulation matrix was corrupted. I've installed a self-healing protocol that should prevent future failures. Also, your oxygen recycling efficiency is now at 99.7% instead of the previous 82%. The room fell silent as everyone stared at her. Ryan pushed through the crowd to stand beside her, ready to defend her if necessary. Lieutenant Marianne approached slowly, her expression unreadable. "You're not human," she stated. "No," Taya agreed cheerfully. "I'm from Vexus Prime, about 12 light years from here. I'm what you might call a tourist. A tourist who can repair complex systems that our best engineers couldn't fix." "I'm a very talented tourist," Taya replied with a smile. Marianne turned to Ryan. "And you knew about this?" Ryan straightened, meeting his commander's gaze. "She appeared in my quarters 2 days ago. I was going to report it, but..." He glanced at Taya. "She hasn't shown any hostile intent. In fact, she's been improving things around the station." "The coffee maker," someone muttered from the crowd. "And the showers," another added. "The temperature controls in Sector 7 finally work properly," a third voice chimed in. Marianne held up a hand for silence. "So you're telling me that an alien infiltrated our military installation, and instead of sabotage, she's been making improvements?" "Significant improvements," the chief engineer confirmed, studying the readouts. "The efficiency upgrades she just implemented will save us thousands in energy costs. And that self-healing protocol? That's technology we won't have for another 50 years. The tension in the room slowly began to dissipate as the reality of the situation sank in. Taya wasn't a threat. If anything, she had just saved the station from a potentially catastrophic failure. "This is highly irregular," Marianne said finally. "Protocol demands that I detain you and contact Central Command." "Of course," Taya nodded agreeably. "Though I should mention that your communication array has a vulnerability in its encryption matrix. I could fix that while we wait, if you'd like." Despite the seriousness of the situation, several people in the room chuckled. Even Marianne's stern expression softened slightly. "Sergeant Sato," she said, "escort our guest to the briefing room. We need to have a long discussion about proper channels for technological improvements. And someone get me a secure line to Central Command. We're going to need to create a new category of visitor status." As Ryan led Taya out of the command center, she whispered, "See, I told you everything would work out." "You planned this?" he asked incredulously. "Not exactly, but I knew that once people saw I could help, they'd be more accepting. Humans are practical creatures, despite your love of rules." The formal inquiry that followed was unlike anything in Station S-14's operational history. Taya sat at the center of the briefing room, surrounded by the station's senior staff, calmly answering questions and occasionally offering suggestions for improving various systems. "Your coffee maker now has a 300% increase in flavor extraction efficiency," she explained to a fascinated Corporal Davies. "And I added a mood detection algorithm so it can suggest beverages based on your emotional state. That explains why it offered me chamomile tea after the alert, Davies murmured appreciatively. Lieutenant Marianne maintained order, though even she seemed intrigued by Taya's explanations. Let me understand this correctly, she said, consulting her notes. You traveled here alone, in a ship with stealth capabilities beyond our detection systems, simply out of curiosity? Essentially, yes, Taya confirmed. My people have observed Earth for some time. You're considered something of an enigma in the galactic community, technologically adolescent, yet showing remarkable adaptability. I wanted to experience human culture firsthand, and you chose a military outpost for this cultural exchange. Taya shrugged, a surprisingly human gesture. I detected interesting energy patterns from your station. Besides, military installations often represent the most structured aspects of a society. I thought it would be educational to see how humans function under strict regulation. And your conclusion? Marianne asked. That you're wonderfully contradictory, Taya replied with genuine warmth. You create rigid systems, then find creative ways to work around them. You value order, but celebrate individuality. It's fascinating. Ryan, who had been standing at attention throughout the proceedings, found himself speaking up. Lieutenant, if I may? Marianne nodded for him to continue. Taya has shown nothing but goodwill since arriving. Yes, she entered without authorization, but she's also prevented a major systems failure and improved station efficiency across the board. Perhaps there's an opportunity here. An opportunity? Marianne raised an eyebrow. For cultural exchange, technical advancement. We could learn a lot from her, and maybe she could learn something from us too. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled staff. The chief engineer was already making notes about the systems Taya had improved, while the medical officer seemed particularly interested in her biological scans. Marianne considered this for a long moment. Central Command would never approve an official exchange program without months of bureaucracy. Then don't make it official, Taya suggested. Consider me a consultant, a temporary technical advisor who happens to be from very far away. That's still highly irregular, but not unprecedented. The station's legal advisor interjected. We've had civilian contractors before. The fact that she's non-human doesn't technically violate any existing regulations, as those regulations never anticipated this scenario. The discussion continued for hours, with various department heads weighing in on the potential benefits and risks. Throughout it all, Taya remained patient and cooperative, occasionally producing small devices from her seemingly bottomless pockets to demonstrate solutions to problems the station had struggled with for years. Finally, Marianne made her decision. Very well. Pending approval from Central Command, which I'll request using the most ambiguous language possible, Taya will be granted temporary advisor status. She'll be assigned quarters, officially Sergeant Sato, not just squatting in yours, and will have limited access to non-classified systems. A cheer went up from several staff members, quickly stifled by Marianne's stern look. However, she continued, any modifications to station systems must be approved in advance. No more surprise upgrades, no matter how beneficial. And Taya, you'll need to attend a briefing on human military protocols. Of course, Taya agreed readily. Though I should mention your emergency protocols could use some updating. Would you like me to prepare a presentation? Marianne sighed, but there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. One step at a time. Sergeant Sato, since you're already familiar with our guest, you'll serve as her liaison officer. Make sure she understands our procedures. Yes, ma'am, Ryan replied, trying not to smile too broadly. As the meeting adjourned, Taya turned to Ryan with a triumphant grin. See, I told you I'd find a way to stay. You manipulated this entire situation, didn't you? He asked, though he couldn't bring himself to be angry about it. I prefer to think of it as creative problem-solving, she replied. Besides, your station needed help, and I needed a purpose. It's mutually beneficial. Over the next few days, Station S-14 underwent a remarkable transformation. With official sanction, Taya's improvements accelerated. The food synthesizers now produced meals that actually tasted like food, The environmental systems maintained perfect comfort levels, and even the notoriously glitchy communication array operated flawlessly. More importantly, the station's atmosphere changed. Personnel who had been counting down the days until their rotation ended now found reasons to linger in common areas, sharing stories and laughter. The coffee maker's morning jazz sessions became a beloved ritual, and someone had taught it to tell jokes. Ryan found himself spending more and more time with Taya, ostensibly in his role as liaison officer, but increasingly because he enjoyed her company. She showed him wonders he'd never imagined: holographic star maps of her home system, devices that could translate the electromagnetic songs of distant pulsars into audible music, and technologies that seemed to blur the line between science and magic. In return, he introduced her to human concepts she found endlessly fascinating: the illogical beauty of poetry, the emotional complexity of classical music, and the simple pleasure of sharing a meal with friends. One evening, as they sat in the observation deck watching the stars while slowly past, Taya turned to him with a serious expression. "You know," she said softly, "I didn't just come here out of curiosity." Ryan waited, sensing this was important. "My people have forgotten how to dream," she continued. "We've optimized everything, solved every problem, eliminated every inefficiency. But in doing so, we've lost something essential: the ability to imagine something better, even when things are already perfect." She gestured at the bustling station visible through the internal windows. "Humans still dream. You still reach for things beyond your grasp. That's why I came here, to remember what it feels like to want something more." Ryan considered this. "And have you found what you were looking for?" Taya smiled, her antennae swaying gently. "I found something I didn't expect. A place where imperfection creates possibility. Where a broken coffee maker can become a source of joy. Where a soldier can befriend an alien and nobody thinks it's strange anymore." "Well, they think it's a little strange," Ryan admitted with a laugh. "But they accept it. That's what matters." She paused, then added, "I've been thinking about requesting permanent assignment here." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. "Really? If the station will have me, and if my liaison officer doesn't mind continuing in that role, I think that can be arranged," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Months passed, and Taya's presence became an integral part of station life. She officially held the title of Interstellar Technical Consultant, a position created specifically for her. Her quarters, formerly a storage room, had been transformed into a fascinating blend of human and alien aesthetics. The station itself had become something of a legend within the military network. Efficiency ratings were through the roof, morale was at an all-time high, and there was a waiting list of personnel requesting transfer to S-14. Central Command had stopped asking questions, mostly because they couldn't argue with the results. Ryan had changed too. The rigid, by-the-book sergeant had learned to embrace a certain amount of chaos in his life. He found himself looking forward to each day, wondering what new wonder Taya would reveal or what unexpected problem she would solve in her uniquely creative way. Their relationship had evolved beyond mere friendship, though neither had put exact words to it. They shared meals, worked on projects together, and spent hours in conversation about everything from quantum physics to the proper way to brew tea. One morning, as they shared breakfast in the mess hall, the food synthesizer now producing perfectly crafted omelets, Taya made an announcement. "I've been in communication with my home world," she said casually, as if discussing the weather. Ryan felt a sudden chill. "Are they calling you back?" "Actually, they're sending an observation team. They want to study the S-14 phenomenon, as they're calling it. Apparently, our success here has challenged some long-held beliefs about the benefits of absolute optimization." "That's good, right?" Taya nodded. "It's revolutionary. Actually, for the first time in generations, my people are questioning whether perfection is truly the ultimate goal. They want to learn from humans. From us." Ryan couldn't hide his surprise. "But we're barely scratching the surface of space travel. Our technology is primitive compared to yours." "Technology isn't everything," Taya replied, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "You have something we lost long ago: the courage to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to try things that might not work. That's more valuable than any device I could create. The arrival of the Vexian observation team was a major event. 3 beings similar to Taya, but somehow more formal, more reserved, materialized in the docking bay. They observed everything with clinical detachment, taking endless notes and asking probing questions. Ryan watched as Taya interacted with her people, noting how she had changed since arriving on the station. She was more animated, more expressive, more human in many ways. The contrast with her reserved compatriots was striking. After a week of observation, the team prepared to depart. Their leader, a tall being with silver skin and piercing blue eyes, addressed the assembled station staff. "We came here expecting to find chaos," he admitted. "Instead, we found a new model of cooperation. The integration of our technology with your flexibility has created something neither of our peoples could have achieved alone. This station will be studied for generations." As the team left, Taya turned to Ryan with a mischievous smile. "Want to hear something funny? They've classified me as culturally contaminated. Apparently, I've become too human to return to normal Vexian society. Is that a problem?" Ryan asked, concerned. "Not at all. It means I get to stay here indefinitely, as a permanent cultural liaison." She paused, then added softly, "If that's okay with you." Ryan pretended to consider this seriously. "Well, I suppose we could use a permanent technical consultant, and the coffee maker would be devastated if you left." "Just the coffee maker?" Taya asked, her antennae tilting forward inquisitively. "Maybe not just the coffee maker," Ryan admitted. A year after Taya's arrival, Station S-14 had become the most requested assignment in the entire military network. It had also become an unofficial embassy of sorts, with representatives from various alien species dropping by to observe the human Vexian experiment. Ryan and Taya had moved into shared quarters, a larger space that combined elements of both their cultures. Their relationship had become something that neither human nor Vexian protocols quite covered, but that didn't matter. They had created their own category, just as they had created a new way of life on the station. One evening, as they watched the stars through their quarters' expanded viewport, Taya brought up a subject they had both been avoiding. "You know your service term ends in 6 months, she said carefully. Ryan nodded. He had been thinking about it constantly. "I could re-enlist, request permanent assignment to S-14. But that's not what you really want, is it?" Taya asked, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "You told me once that you dreamed of being a pilot, of exploring the unknown." "That was before," Ryan replied. "Before I found something worth staying for." Taya turned to face him fully. "What if you didn't have to choose? What if you could have both?" "What do you mean?" She smiled, producing a small holographic projector. "I've been working on something. A proposal, actually." The device activated, displaying a sleek ship design that seemed to blend human and Vexian aesthetics. "It's a new class of vessel, exploration and diplomatic combined. The first of its kind." Ryan studied the projection in amazement. "It's beautiful, but why are you showing me this?" "Because I've been offered command of the prototype, the first joint human-Vexian deep space mission, and I need a co-pilot, someone who understands both cultures, who can bridge the gap between our peoples." She paused, her antennae quivering slightly with nervousness. "Someone I trust completely." Ryan's heart raced as he understood what she was offering. "You want me to come with you? Leave the station?" "I want us to explore the universe together," Taya corrected. "To find new worlds, make new discoveries, and maybe help other species learn what we've learned here. That imperfection and difference aren't weaknesses, they're strengths." "But what about S-14? Everything we've built here will continue without us. We've created something sustainable, something that can grow on its own. Lieutenant Marianne has already approved the plan. She says it's the logical next step in human-Vexian cooperation." Ryan looked around their quarters, at the life they had built together. It was comfortable, safe, predictable. Everything his military training had taught him to value. But Taya had also taught him the value of embracing the unexpected, of taking risks for something greater. "When would we leave?" he asked. Taya's face lit up with joy. After your service term ends, we'll have time to train, to prepare. The ship is still under construction, incorporating the best of both our technologies, including, she added with a grin, an advanced coffee maker with full personality matrix and a repertoire of over 10,000 songs. Ryan laughed, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. How could I say no to that? The months that followed were a whirlwind of preparation. News of the joint mission spread throughout human space, generating excitement and speculation. Station S-14 became a training ground for the future crew, a mix of humans and Vexians who would serve aboard the new ship. Ryan underwent intensive pilot training, learning to handle Vexian control systems that responded to thought as much as touch. Taya, meanwhile, worked closely with engineers from both species to perfect the ship's design, incorporating lessons learned from their time on the station. Their relationship deepened during this time, becoming something that transcended mere partnership. They developed a wordless communication, a synchronicity that amazed even the Vexian observers. When they finally stood together on the bridge of their completed ship, the Aurora, named for the lights that danced between worlds, it felt like destiny. The launch ceremony was attended by dignitaries from multiple species. Station S-14 was decorated for the occasion, its corridors filled with beings of all shapes and sizes who had come to witness this historic moment. Lieutenant Marianne, now promoted to commander, gave a speech that brought tears to many eyes. A year ago, we were a forgotten outpost on the edge of nowhere. Today, we launched the future. This is what happens when we open our minds to the impossible, when we embrace the unknown instead of fearing it. As Ryan and Taya prepared to board their ship, the station's coffee maker played a farewell song it had composed specifically for the occasion. The entire crew lined up to say goodbye, many of them emotional at the departure of the pair who had transformed their lives. "You'll visit, won't you?" Corporal Davies asked, clutching a thermos of perfectly brewed coffee. "Of course," Taya assured him. S-14 will always be our first home. Private Jensen, who at first suspected something strange in Ryan's quarters all those months ago, stepped forward. "You know, I had a feeling that morning that something big was happening. I just didn't know how big." "Neither did we," Ryan admitted, shaking his hand. The Aurora's maiden voyage took them beyond the boundaries of known space. They discovered worlds where crystal forests sang in harmony with solar winds, nebulas that painted themselves across the void like living art, and civilizations that defied conventional understanding of life itself. But more importantly, they discovered that their partnership, born of accident and nurtured by acceptance, had become a template for a new kind of exploration. Everywhere they went, they shared the lessons of Station S-14. That diversity creates strength, that imperfection enables growth, and that sometimes the best discoveries come from simply being open to the unexpected. Years later, when historians wrote about the transformation of human-alien relations, they would point to a simple incident on a remote space station. The night an alien woman accidentally entered a human soldier's room and decided not to leave. It was, they would say, the beginning of a new era. Not because of the technology shared or the protocols established, but because two beings from different worlds learned that home isn't a place, but a connection between hearts willing to embrace the unknown. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, aboard a ship that sang with the combined dreams of two species, Ryan and Taya continued their journey. The coffee makers still played jazz every morning, improvising new melodies for each alien sunrise they encountered. The environmental systems maintained perfect comfort while allowing for the occasional delightful surprise. And in the captain's quarters, a small hologram displayed the image of Station S-14, a reminder of where it all began. "Do you ever regret it?" Ryan asked one evening as they watched a binary star system paint the bridge in alternating hues of blue and gold. "Staying that first night, instead of leaving like you were supposed to?" Taya laughed, her antennae swaying with amusement. "Regret finding a home? Regret meeting you? Never." She paused, then added with mock seriousness, "Though I do occasionally regret teaching the coffee maker to tell jokes." Some of them are terrible. They're all terrible, Ryan agreed, pulling her close. And I wouldn't change a thing. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, full of mysteries yet to be discovered. And on the bridge of the Aurora, two explorers who had found each other by accident continued their journey into the infinite, proving that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the simplest acts of kindness and curiosity. The universe, it turned out, had a sense of humor after all. And perhaps that was the most important discovery of all. That joy, wonder, and love could flourish anywhere, even in the most unlikely of circumstances, as long as there were beings brave enough to embrace the imperfect, beautiful chaos of life itself. As their ship sailed deeper into uncharted territory, Ryan and Taya knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. After all, they had already accomplished the impossible, turning a chance encounter into a love that spanned the stars, and transforming a forgotten military outpost into the birthplace of a new era of interstellar cooperation. And somewhere, in a space station at the edge of known space, a coffee maker continued to sing its morning songs, welcoming each new day with jazz and jokes, a permanent reminder that sometimes the most profound changes in the universe begin with the smallest, most unexpected moments.